Hey team, in this session, what I want to talk about are three things that you need to pay attention to enjoy yourself more in your work, your career, or your business. Not just enjoy yourself, but perform better, get better results, and really feel that you're aligned with the right path that you should be on or want to be on. Now, it's something that I've noticed over the years of coaching high performance leaders, executives, and it's a trend. And I actually looked back over all the clients I've worked with over the last, say, 10 plus years. And what were the three things that the people that got great results, had a great experience, that they transformed the most, optimized? What did they really look at and transform? And I'll just take you through a couple of case studies just to exemplify this. So I was working with a lady, and she was a CMO, so Chief Marketing Officer of a company, paid really, really well. And also, she loved what she did. She loved marketing. Yet the problem was that she reported on the way into coaching being very unhappy, unfulfilled. And when we dug into this in the coaching, we really worked out that the money was right, the activities were right, but she didn't feel like she was having any impact on something that she really valued. And this is really important, is that she really valued. She didn't have any value for what the company was doing. She didn't enjoy the people that they worked with. It wasn't her marketplace. She didn't resonate with them at all. And just by identifying that, she actually realized that she needed to leave the company. And it was actually a really important vista for her, because like one of the things that I often find is that if you're not aligned with the purpose and the impact that you're having, there's only going to be a certain amount of time that you'll tolerate that. Equally, I've worked with personal trainers in the past who've come to me who wanted to either become a coach or wanted to improve their personal training practice. And they've come to me and they've had great impact. They've really felt that they've transformed someone's life, or they've had a group and they've created a community, and there's so much impact in what they're doing, yet the money's not right. And the problem with that is yeah, you might be having an impact. Yeah, it might be this thing that you feel that you could do for free, but you're not going to be able to do that very long if it's not paying the bills. And that's the problem with that. And so what I want to share with you in this podcast is three things to focus on to make sure, A, you're getting the right money, B, you're having the right impact, and C, that you're doing the right activities. Because if the money's great, the impact's great, but you're doing the wrong activities, A, you're not going to flourish. You're not going to feel like you're really getting anywhere. Or B, you're just going to get fed up and bored and want to leave. For example, I think I was speaking to a trader last week, and he said, yeah, the money's great. The impact's not great. I don't really get to have much impact. I kind of impact my bottom line, but also I'm sat in front of a screen all day. And so he said, I'm in it for the short term. I want to make my money. I want to get out. So the only thing that was really good in his equation was the money. He's like, yeah, I don't really like sitting behind a computer all day, and I don't feel like I'm really having any positive impact on humanity. So he won't be there for very long, because that's what happens. Like, a lot of people come into coaching because they're feeling unfulfilled. They're feeling like they've climbed the right ladder against the wrong wall. It feels like they really want to do something positive with their life, especially people that know they have a force for change. Like someone who's got the diligence and the skill set and the character abilities to be good at something like trading also has the same abilities to grow something that's impactful, that also lights them up and gets them doing things that really stretches them. So these are the three things that we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on money, impact, and activities. And in no particular order, but why is money first? Well, here's my opinion, is that yes, you might love what you do. Yes, you might love the impact you're having, but you're not going to be able to do it very long, or you're not actually going to be able to achieve the qualifications necessary if you don't have the money. And what I mean by this is, and I use personal training as a great example for this, is that when I was 21, maybe 20, I started investing an incredible amount in qualifications and personal training. I did a postgraduate. I also did loads of internships. I did loads of certifications. They cost a lot of money. I remember looking at some of the bills for some of the years, and it was way in excess of 25, 30,000. I wasn't into Porsches or Lamborghinis. I was into personal development. But if I look at this, like for most personal trainers charging 20 to 30 pounds an hour at that time in my area, Even if you were a really busy personal trainer, you would never have been able to match my personal development bill and have a life. You wouldn't be even able to run your life on that. So I worked out I had to be charging the right amount of money in order to sustain the level of competence that I wanted to have. So many people who go into a corporate workspace or go into a job, the employer pays for their personal development. Whereas actually, if you're doing it off your own back, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to pay. And that's what I noticed. So you have to have the money right, because you also need runway. You won't have a good chance at making something work if you haven't got runway. And most ideas die because people run out of cash. And I've seen so many examples of this, is that, maybe even they get grants, maybe people get loans, maybe people do all sorts of things to fund an idea. And what they're doing is continually taking shots at the market until something pays off, and then the idea grows. But the problem being, if you haven't got the money right, you can't do that for very long. So that's where, one of my skills really is like kind of imperfect action taking, launching, getting things going. I've taught a lot of people to do that, because what it does immediately gives you runway. It gives you an opportunity to bring some money in while you're still testing new ideas. And that's such an important skill to have, especially as an entrepreneur, especially as someone who is growing a business by 10x. Robert and I did a webinar on this the other day. It's like called a 2-track transformation system, that you optimize what you're already doing whilst taking shots and doing something that's 10x better. So this is what I believe about the money part. Money often separates the committed from the idealists. What happens is, most people can have a great idea until they have to start selling it. The amount of people that I've had on initial coaching conversations who've had great ideas, yet as soon as it comes to commercializing it, asking for money, taking it to the marketplace, asking people they know to buy from them, that all just disappears. They get all shaky and they worry about things, because ultimately they're going to have to ask someone to take a shot with them, to trust them enough to make whatever claim about their product or service into a reality. And it's quite an interesting moment, because it does separate the wheat from the chaff, really. The amount of times that I've seen people, Ben, I've got this great idea. It's the best idea. It's going to be the best thing ever. And then as soon as it comes to asking for money for that idea, that's when they really, really struggle. But I think there's a skill that they might be missing as well. And this is what I think will help you if you're trying to optimize this, if this is something that you're trying to work on, which is your offer. So let me just give you a little bit of a background on this one. I might have told this on the podcast before, but it always helps to hear it again. I had a gym for about 12, 15 years. I had a boot camp before that. And the boot camp offer really got me going. It was really, really powerful offer. It was like, buy your first month, get your second month for free. So it was 8 weeks of training for £100. Did that outdoors for about 3 years. Got a lot of money from that, and then I rolled that into buying myself a gym. So I got a gym. I made a really nice gym, and then we changed the offer from that offer to buy 12 weeks of training for £300. This is what happened. I thought that would be way more valuable. You get 3 sessions in a gym, you get a consultation, yada, 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 all these things. I thought they were valuable. I thought it was a really good offer. Yet I didn't get that same buy-in from the marketplace. It was hard to sell. I was there thinking, this is so valuable. There's so much stuff in it. And it's such a long time to transform. It's going to be really helpful. Yeah, it felt really, really difficult to sell. And anyway, one of the things that changed over the subsequent couple of years is that the offer got shortened. It went from 12 to 8 to 6. And by doing that, it got easier to sell. And that's what I mean by looking at your offer. You might have something that you think is really valuable, unlimited training. It could be that you're going to give them all round the clock support. It could be something that's in your service or your product that you think is great, but it actually repels the customer. And this could be like, if you've got a restaurant or if you've got a cafe, you might think a really big menu is really, really helpful. And it can be overwhelming. It can be super overwhelming and actually not very profitable, because you've got to stock all the ingredients. So just by making things different, sometimes removing decisions, removing options, it makes things way more valuable for the customer. So the first thing that we need to do to solve the money problem is look at your offer. It's got to be really, really, really clear, and it's got to be something that you can easily fulfill on, because there's a principle called the circle of money. And just like the circle of trust, the circle of money grows when you make a promise and you keep a promise. And this is something I learned when I was doing body transformation, is that I was regularly making this promise: I'll help you lose 2 to 3 stone in 12 weeks. And people would see me making that promise frequently, but they didn't see the results as frequently. And so for them, they obviously understood that I didn't get frequent results. I think that for every, say, 10 people that came in through the door, about 3 would actually get the result of 2 to 3 stone in the 12 weeks, which is great. It's a 30% hit rate, but not good enough. So what we did is, as we shortened it, we also started ramping up how often we were pumping out the testimonials, saying this is what we can do in 6 weeks. We had so many people fulfilling the promise on our behalf. So we had so many people that would lose their first 1 to 2 stone on that 6-week challenge. So they would see us in the marketplace saying, come to us, we'll help you transform. And then they would see the testimonials. So they knew that we were able to make a promise and keep a promise. And that meant our offer was effective. And that's the biggest problem. I think that so many people now are in a place where they're marketed to all of the time. And it's like, show me the proof. Show me that this works. We had this last, say, 5 years, which is being called the trust recession. Like, trust is at an all-time low that you can fulfill on your promise. So the final part of getting the money right is money flows to offers of high perceived value. Now, what I mean by this is money flows to offers of high perceived value, being that what you're solving for that person with your product or service is valuable to them. That you're going to increase speed, ease, and certainty. Now, I like using personal training as an example because A, I know it exceptionally well, but B, most of us experience this kind of thing when we've gone into a gym. So I used to sell a boot camp for £300 and I used to sell personal training for £3,000. There was 10 times the difference, in price, 10 times the intimacy. There'd be like maybe 10 people in a group and one-on-one person in a personal training session. There was literally 10x more intimacy, which you had paid for. Here's the thing. Why would someone buy £3,000 versus the 300? Well, speed. They believed they would get to their result quicker if they had more intimacy. Ease. They had somebody making it simple for them specifically. And finally, certainty. The fact that they were investing 10 times more in a personal trainer made them feel more certain that they were going to get the result. But why do people want speed, ease, and certainty? Because they're trying to meet their pains, urgencies, and desires. Now, let me give you an example for this. Say you've got a woman who is only able to conceive through IVF. She's 35. She is now fighting against the clock to have a baby, but she's 3 stone overweight. So the pain is, I really want to have a child. That is such a big pain. And it was huge. We'd get so many women who would come in and they'd tried so many different ways of losing weight and keeping it off and ethically losing it and feeling good about themselves and not destroying their body. They were in pain. The urgency was that they would only be able to have the IVF if they lost 2 to 3 stone. And the desire was actually having the child, actually losing that and being able to go into the clinic and get the funding or whatever it was that they were going to do to get the process underway. So huge desire. It was exactly the same with brides. It was exactly the same for people in the police who had to pass a bleep test to keep their job. There was pain, there was urgency, and there was desire. You have to consider these things when you're writing your offer. Like, what is painful for that person? What is urgent for that person? And what do they truly desire? And then what your offer does is it increases speed, ease, and certainty towards those 3 things. And when I really understood that, my life changed forever. My offers got clearer and I was more effective at selling online and selling in person, because what I was saying is like, hey, this is how I can help you. If you've got this pain, you want to do it in this amount of time and you want this result, well, I can help you. Here's how I'll increase the speed. Here's how I'll create the ease. I'll make it simple for you. and I'll guarantee this. I'll guarantee that you'll get this, or I'll carry on working with you until you do. Like, kind of give you a guarantee. And that's when my money changed. That's when my money changed. I've seen it for clients. That's the first thing that we need to get right. Okay. Let's talk about impact, because you could be doing really well in a corporate career. You could be doing really well in your business. But if you don't feel that you're impacting the world in the way that you value, that is going to be a problem. And this is kind of more of a slow burn problem for a lot of people. I think this is kind of this is kind of a problem that creeps up in you in your 30s and 40s. And in the conversations I've had with, professional men and women, they've come to me and said, yeah, I was doing this job, working for Pfizer, or I was working for I was doing real estate sales, or I was a trader, or whatever it is. Things that maybe the money's great, but the impact isn't great, or they don't feel like they're having an impact. They felt empty. They felt purposeless, purposeless, and they really struggled. It was like, this is not what I've been put on planet Earth to do. And this is where you kind of see this kind of jump from someone in a career to go and doing something totally different. Like, a lot of people become coaches because of that reason. They are in a corporate workplace. They love what they do from a money standpoint. They enjoy the activities. They work hard, but they're not having the impact. And they realize that coaching can be very impactful. They get to do similar activities because they're leaders, and it gives them good money. But one of the things that they're often trying to sort then is the money side. So it has to be right. Impact has to be right, because what do I know? Start with why, as Simon Sinek says, is when you start with why, you can bear almost any how. And like, I want to share my own experience with this. I am passionately in love with transformation. I am so in love with the world of transformation because it's all I know. I had a brief spell in working in education that didn't go too well. And in that, I just felt like I wasn't aligned with my purpose. But I'm fascinated by transformation because of what it's done for me. I'm also fascinated by coaching because I've had great coaches and they've helped me transform my life. And so when you get really, really clear on your impact, you can do, and you can push through some of the hardest things. Like, I've pushed through challenges in my career as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a trainer, as a leader, that it's just like, there is no, am I doing this or am I not doing this? There's only one option. I have to keep moving forwards because I want to fulfill my potential and have the impact that I want to have. I remember, like, various times, even during COVID, looking at the clients that I had, and I was like, hey, I've got no other choice than to really serve these people in this uncertain time. So I showed up really powerfully during that because my why was so strong. I really wanted to have the impact. I wanted to have an impact on people during one of the most scary health times of our lives as people that live right now. So the second thing, if you're not clear on your impact, you'll lose your why, and your why will be fuzzy. And I've noticed that when people are not clear on their why, they do random stuff. They start doing things that just doesn't have an impact on themselves or the people that they could, and they waste a lot of potential. And then the final one is that your human needs aren't being met. And one of the biggest human needs, as Tony Robbins talks about, is this need for contribution. And I've noticed this more and more and more, especially in myself. And I was actually thinking about this a couple of weeks ago. I was like, actually, hang on a second. How am I contributing to society at the moment? Like, how am I actually supporting people? They're not just people that pay me, not just people that in my network. And it's like, how am I actually having an impact on people that are, in society? And it really led me to the question. I was not asking those questions when I was 20, but I'm asking them more and more now. I'm 30, nearly 40. So impact has to be right. And finally, activities. Now, there is something called The Big Leap, written by Gay Hendricks. I've interviewed him on a podcast. You can actually, if you go back through the podcast, you'll see it. Gay Hendricks came up with this principle of the Big Leap. Now, the Big Leap is where we have 4 zones. We have the zone of incompetence, we have the zone of competence, we have the zone of excellence, and we have the zone of genius. Now, when we are operating in our zone of incompetence or competence, we're often doing activities that maybe we can be replaced with by AI. Maybe that they're not effective, they're not fulfilling, we're not being efficient with our skills and our talents, and we're probably at risk of being replaced. To be quite honest. When we're operating from our zone of excellence, we're often doing work that we are rewarded by society well for. So, for example, this could be a leader who is working in a team. So, really like a small team, 5 or 6 people, and they run that team really, really well. Zone of excellence. But that possibility for that leader is the CEO position, running the whole organization. And the problem being is that society rewards us, and like, for example, our parents, our society, our community say, "Oh, well done, you're a doctor, and you're looking after 6 other doctors. You're doing a great job." But deep inside you, like, no, I know I can have a bigger impact. I know I can be doing something that is really going to challenge me, and it's going to put me doing, yes, I'm going to be doing different activities, or I'm going to be doing one of the activities I already do, but I'm going to be way more effective with the time that I do it. So it causes people to have a real stuckiness between the zone of excellence and the zone of genius. And I've seen people stay in their zone of excellence their whole lives and feeling unfulfilled. They realize that they could have pushed themselves that little bit harder. There's regret. And so what we actually have to do is take the big leap. Now, taking the big leap means leaping out of your zone of excellence into your zone of genius. Now, for example, my experience for this in my life was I was an excellent trainer. I was excellent at what I did. I made people feel valued. I made people feel connected to me. I gave them a good experience in the training session. I was like a really, really strong challenger. I would challenge them to lift heavier weights. I would support them if they had an injury. I was compassionate. I learned their name, all that stuff. Really, really valuable stuff. Really important stuff. Was I excellent? Yes. Was I the best trainer ever in the world? Probably not. I used to think so, though. But I did have that belief. I had that belief that I was absolutely excellent at what I did. So, what was the zone of genius thing? Well, I had this deep calling within my soul. I was like, actually, Ben, the thing that you can have the most impact and you enjoy the most is sitting down in the consultation room, trying to have a conversation about transformation that's going to help someone shift X. Like, I can give you a good workout and I can create a X shift in your life. But if I can help you think differently, see yourself differently, act differently, look at bigger goals, I can create a 10X shift. And so my big leap was moving from training people into coaching. And I was doing a bit of both for about 5 or 6 years. And then I totally dropped the training and I went all in on the coaching. And that transformation, even though I'd been doing coaching since even the first part of my career, it was the 20%. And now it's the 90% of what I do. Coach people every single day. I spend most of my day going from coaching client to coaching client with space in between to think about those clients. And that's what I do. I just coach people all day. And am I fulfilled? Hell yes. Am I in my zone of genius? Probably, but there's probably another zone within this zone. But that's the thing is that, and Maslow said this, well, the thing is that what one can be, one must be. If I was a trainer and I was getting the golden handcuffs position of like, oh yeah, this is good money, I'm getting loads of money from my boot camp, I'm enjoying running the gym, but I want to be a coach, but I'm really well compensated from the gym, I'll stay here, I would have had regret. So that was a huge leap, big leap for me. And I've helped so many people with the same thing. When they've been in a corporate space and they wanted to become a coach, or when they've been a business leader and they wanted to have maybe a new product line and do something different, those are the things that we often work on in coaching. And this is where it's actually Abraham Maslow's statement of, if you plan on being anything less than you're capable of being, you'll be unhappy for the rest of your life. And what he meant by that is that if there is a soul goal, a calling, something within you that you know that you can do, you absolutely must go out and have a go at it, or you will be unhappy. There will be an unhappiness that spreads within you. And I've met so many people that have experienced that. And the final part is finding your edge. activities help you find your edge. Now, there was a part, especially when I started creating Awaken Man or when I started my own business last year, when I was out on my own, I felt like I was just in not startup mode again, but like new ways of thinking about things, doing things differently. And you often are finding your edge when the activities are pushing you. I was actually Poppy and I watched the Molly May documentary. She loves it. I've agreed to watch it with her. But you can see that Molly May really lots of respect for Molly May. She has found her edge. She's really pushing the boundaries of what she's capable of doing with marketing and her product line. So it's a great documentary that kind of exemplifies that. Yeah, you've kind of got all of the celebrity stuff. I'm not really into that, but from a business perspective, it really is quite profound how she's shifting the impact that she's having on her customers. And I really love that. So what getting your activities right will do is it'll help you find your edge. It will really light you up. You'll feel alive. Now, those three things, especially when you're clear on those three things, getting the money right, your offer, your activities, what you're doing, and the impact, when those three are aligned, you feel like a rocket ship. And I've noticed the difference when people take those big leaps, change from having one of these things right to getting all three things right. Now, if you need help with that, hopefully this podcast has helped you. Feel free to share it. Feel free to comment on the session as well. If there's something that's really resonated with you personally. If you would like my help optimizing one of these three areas, click on the link in the comments and that will take you to a form. And if you literally just fill out that form, it's actually a scorecard. It will ask you a couple of questions. And then if there is something that I can help you with, maybe it's getting one of these clear or something that you're trying to achieve in your career or your business, all you need to do is book a call where we can have a conversation and we will work out how I can help you. Thank you so much for watching this video, listening to the podcast, and I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.